Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of The Spark. Hope you're doing fantastic on this fine Easter morning. Listen, I'm so excited to be here with you and to take an opportunity to share something with you that's going to take you to another level and help you out tremendously. I am really looking forward to this lesson in particular because this is one of the things that I really focus on a lot of the time, not only in teaching, but also with myself. So today we're going to talk about your attitude. And you know, my old saying is your attitude determines your altitude. And I don't even remember where I learned that from or who gave me that, but whoever it was, I'm thankful for it because I've learned that my attitude always determines my altitude. Well, today I'm still talking about it's your world. And I want to talk about your attitude, but I want to talk about it from the standpoint of your attitude determines your world. Now that's much broader than your attitude determines your altitude, but it's this in the same vein, it's in the same flowing pattern that I want to get to because this is what I understand. Our attitude is determining things around us and others around us. And because of that, we have to make sure that we are checking our attitude on a daily, I would even go as far as say an hourly consistent basis, that we need to ensure that our attitude is proper, that our attitude is moving in such a direction that it not only supports us and helps us, but that it supports and helps everybody else. Because your attitude, listen to me, your attitude is going to determine your world. And because of that, that's why this is important. So let's talk about it. Attitude. When I talk about attitude, I want to make sure that we all start off with the same mindset or the same concept. An attitude is nothing but a learned tendency to evaluate things in a certain way. It's when like everybody has a way that they evaluate. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I will say this right here. If it's going to determine my outcome, then I really need to check that. So your learned tendency to evaluate things in a certain way could be hindering you or it could be helping you. I want it to help you. So my attitude, listen to this, my attitude towards any person, place, or thing determines my experience, my outcome, and the results I get with a person, place, or thing. It is very critical, is a good word, very critical that we understand it is a result of our expectations and our assumptions. That's how our attitude comes about. It is a result of our expectations or assumptions. Now, let's go back to my definition. It says it's the tendency or a learned tendency to evaluate things in a certain way. And if my evaluation is off, then the outcome that I get is going to be off. So I got to make sure that my attitude is proper when I go into this. I got to make sure that I am doing this in such a way that, like I said, it's not only going to benefit me, but it's going to benefit everybody else that I come into contact with. My expectations or my assumptions determine what I see in this world. That's right. If you expect a certain way, you see things a certain way. If you make certain assumptions, you see things in a certain way. But not only that, the more critical part, I believe, is this right here. My expectations or my assumptions determine what I do, how I act. And so that's why my attitude is so critical because my actions are going to follow these learned tendencies and if my actions follow this and I understand that I get a certain thing out of this. I want you to be very aware of your attitude at all times. Put yourself in a situation where you are constantly evaluating, constantly looking at your attitude and saying, look, is this attitude helping me or is this attitude hindering me? Just the other day, I had an incident with a neighbor, and immediately my attitude turned, and for lack of a better term, it went sour. And I had to quickly check my attitude to ensure that, hey, wait a minute. I don't want to go this route with my neighbor because I understand this right here that my neighbor, this is what I had to go to, my assumption and my expectation. My neighbor meant no harm. I had to assume that because I could have very well assumed that my neighbor was intending harm. And in that, now that puts me in a certain mindset. And because of that certain mindset, my actions towards my neighbor could be challenging. See, what I see in my world and how I act in my world determines my world. I'm going to say that again. What I see in my world and how I act in my world determines what my world is all about. And so I want my world to be the best. And I know you want the same thing for you. You want the best out of life. And I believe with all of my heart, you want the best out of life for others. And you may be sitting there thinking right now, like, I don't know if that's true for everybody. Well, let me give you a little bit of wisdom. I think this will help you. And I may have said this before. I say so many things to try to help people. And this is the truth. People are not against you. I'm going to say it again. People are not against you. And I can hear you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute, David. Wait a minute. No, they're really not against you. Here's what people are. They are just for themselves. That's what it is. It's not there. Don't take it personal. They're not against you. They're just for themselves. And here's where you have to be. Your expectations and your assumptions have got to be so that you take on a mindset that puts you in the proper attitude. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna give you a perfect example right here. Let's say, for instance, someone doesn't like me. That's my current attitude. They don't like me. So guess what? I expect and I assume certain things which makes me act in a certain way, and people are going to react to the certain way that I am acting. That's right. And where did it all start from? Because I assumed and I expected that people don't like me, or this particular person doesn't like me, just like my neighbor. I could have assumed and expected that my neighbor did this on purpose, but I changed it very quickly, and my attitude changed. That's what happens. Because watch this. Here's the second part of this. If you go with the attitude of everybody loves me, to know me is to love me, then you're going to expect and assume certain things that make you act a certain way, and people are going to react to you in a certain way, and then you're going to get a whole different story. So what I want to give to you on today, and I want to call you to action on some things. I want to ask you to do some things. Start making an attitude change, not in others, in you. If you change, your whole world will change. Somebody said, how in the world can I change my attitude? This attitude has been with me forever. I've been conditioned to be this way. David, there are certain people and conditioning and all of this. How can I change? You can change your attitude. Attitudes can change. Yes, they can. The first thing you got to understand is this right here. Don't say you can't change. But I will say this right here. I heard Creflo Dollar say this one time. Change is not change until you change. So you can talk about change and you can be about change, or you can actually go and change. Here's how you got to do it. You got to imagine things a little bit differently. That's change. When you start seeing things differently on the canvas of your imagination, things begin to be different. Then here's number two. You have to expect the best. Remember, I said it's expectation and assumption. So you got to expect the best, you got to assume the best, and finally, you got to set your intention beforehand. Let me show you what I'm talking about, and I'll wrap it up. Number one, if I begin to see things differently on the canvas of my imagination, then I'm going to begin to have a different attitude. Why? Because when you see it a certain way, that's all it is. Remember, it's a learned tendency to evaluate things in a certain way. Well, just change your certain way to another way. And when the best way to do that is to get all by yourself on the canvas of your imagination and begin to see things differently. When you imagine things differently, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to see it a different way. So therefore, you're going to expect something differently. Why? Because you saw it that way. And the way you see things, your expectation and your assumptions run together. The next is what you're going to do, you're going to assume the best. When you expect the best and assume the best, I found out you get the best. And then the third one is to set your intention beforehand. What do I mean by that? In other words, you need to go ahead and say, hey, this is going to be a great day. I'm going to get along with my neighbor. Nothing is going to challenge our relationship. We are going to be working together. We're going to be living in the same neighborhood together. We're going to be doing these things together, and everything is going to be great. And you can set that intention beforehand. Close your eyes and see it that way, expect it that way, assume it that way, and set your intention beforehand. And if you do that, hey, listen, your world's going to change because it's your world and your attitude does determine your world. I hope this has helped you on today. Happy Easter once again. And remember, it's all about your attitude. Don't try, man, good gracious. Don't try to change somebody else's attitude. Boy, that is, you talk about frustrating and failing. That's you. If you're trying to change somebody else, all you got to do is change. If you change, then everything else changes. I promise you it will. Give it a shot this week. But remember this right here. Remember this. You are the architect of your life. And Coach David, that's me. I believe in you. I'll see you next week. You have a great one. Bye.